The Trial of Job, a testament of faith. In the ancient land of Uz, where the sun rose over rolling hills and the wind whispered through the olive groves, there lived a man named Job. His name was spoken with reverence, for he was not only the richest man in the East, but also the most righteous. His heart was a shrine of devotion, his life a tapestry woven with threads of integrity and grace. To the people of Uz, Job was a living parable, a man who walked so closely with God that his very presence seemed to radiate divine favor. Job's estate stretched across fertile plains, its boundaries enclosed by stone walls and shaded by ancient cedars. His flocks numbered 7,000 sheep, and their wool was a source of wealth that covered the region. 3,000 camels roamed his land, with their caravans carrying goods to distant markets. 500 yoke of oxen plowed his fields, and 500 donkeys grazed in pastures that stretched to the horizon. His servants, too numerous to count, moved with purpose, tending his land and honoring their master's generosity. Yet for all his riches, Job's true treasure was his family. 7 sons and 3 daughters, whose laughter filled his home with joy. Every morning, as the first rays of sunlight kissed the earth, Job rose to pray. He stood before a simple stone altar, offering sacrifices for his children. His voice a soft murmur against the dawn. "Perhaps they have sinned in their hearts," he whispered, his hands shaking with fatherly love. "May God forgive them." His sons, strong and spirited, held banquets in their homes, inviting their sisters to share in the bounty. These were days of celebration, where wine flowed and music danced in the air. But Job's heart remained vigilant, ever seeking God's mercy for those he loved. The people of Uz marveled at Job's life. "Surely," they said, "this man is blessed, for he fears God and shuns evil." His home was a haven of peace, his fields a testament to God's provision. Yet, unknown to Job, a shadow loomed beyond the veil of the mortal world. In the heavenly courts, where angels gathered before the throne of the Almighty, a question arose that would shake the foundations of Job's life. The accuser, Satan, stood among God's children, his voice a hiss of doubt. "Does Job fear God in vain?" he challenged. "You have surrounded him with blessings. Strip him of his wealth, his family, his health, and he will curse you to your face." The Lord, in his infinite wisdom, permitted the test. "All that he has is in your power," he declared, "but do not touch his life." And so the stage was set for a judgment that would echo through the ages, a testament to the resilience of faith in the face of unimaginable sorrow. The heavenly challenge, far above the dusty plains of Uz, beyond the reach of mortal eyes, the heavens shone with the glory of the Almighty. In a realm where time had no power, the sons of God, celestial beings radiant with divine light, gathered before the Creator's throne. Their voices, like a choir of stars, sang praises that echoed across the vastness of eternity. The throne itself was a blaze of unapproachable splendor, its foundations rooted in justice, its canopy woven with mercy. There, the Lord reigned supreme, his wisdom unfathomable, his power unmatched. In the midst of the assembly, an intruder insinuated himself into the divine court. Satan, the accuser, whose presence was a shadow in the midst of the light, approached with an ironic smile that belied his malice. His eyes, cold as emptiness, searched the assembly, seeking an opportunity to sow discord. The voice of the Lord, resonant with authority, broke the silence. "Where do you come from?" he asked, although he knew the answer even before the question was asked. "From roaming in the earth," Satan replied, with a tone full of mockery, "and from walking up and down upon it." His words carried a challenge, as if the earth were his domain, a playground for his plans. The Lord's gaze, penetrating and unyielding, fixed on him. "Have you considered my servant Job?" he said, his voice firm but full of pride. "There is none like him in the earth, a blameless and upright man who fears me and turns away from evil." Satan's laughter was a hiss, sharp and venomous. "Does Job fear you for nothing?" he retorted. "Have you not built a hedge around him, around his house, and around all that he has? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his wealth overflows. But stretch out your hand and strike all that he has, and he will surely curse you to your face." The accusation hung in the air, a challenge thrown before the throne. It was not a question of Job's character, but of the nature of faith itself. Could devotion endure unrewarded? The Lord, in his sovereign wisdom, permitted the test, not out of doubt, but to reveal the depth of Job's heart. "Behold, all that he has is in your power," he declared, "but do not touch his life." The limit was set, an unbreakable limit to the accuser's malice. Satan departed, his form dissolving into the ether, eager to unleash his plan. The heavenly court fell silent, the angels watching with bated breath, for the fate of one man's faith would reverberate through the ages, a testament to the power of trust in the unseen. On earth, Job continued his morning prayers, oblivious to the cosmic dialogue that had sealed his fate. The altar smoked with the aroma of burnt offerings, and the sun rose higher, casting golden rays over Uz. But in the unseen realm, the wheels of a great ordeal were beginning to turn, and the peace of Job's world was about to be shattered. The first trial: loss of wealth and children. The day began like any other in Uz, with the rhythm of life pulsing through Job's estate. Servants milled about the fields, leading oxen as they plowed furrows in the fertile soil. Shepherds tended the vast flocks, their calls mingling with the bleating of the sheep. In the distance, camels plied the trade routes, laden with goods bound for distant lands. At the center of it all was Job, standing at the altar, his hands raised in supplication as he prayed for his sons. The eldest son's house, a sprawling structure of stone and wood, was bustling with preparations for a feast. Job's sons laughed and sang, their voices carried on the breeze, a symphony of joy that warmed their father's heart. But as the sun reached its zenith, a shadow fell over Uz, not a cloud, but an unseen force, swift and relentless. In the fields, a servant named Amos was guiding a yoke of oxen when the ground shook slightly beneath his feet. He stopped, frowning. Amos's forehead grew louder as a distant rumble grew louder. Suddenly, a band of Sabaeans, invaders from the southern deserts, swooped in like locusts, their swords gleaming in the sunlight. "Flee!" Amos shouted, but it was too late. The invaders struck with brutal precision, cutting down the servants and driving away the oxen and donkeys. Amos, bloodied but alive, staggered away, his heart pounding as he ran toward Job's house. Miles away, on the hills where Job's sheep grazed, a shepherd named Eliab watched the horizon. The sky darkened, not with storm clouds but with an unearthly glow. A bolt of fire, blinding and fierce, erupted from the heavens, striking the flock. The sheep scattered, their fleece igniting as the flames consumed them. Eliab fell to his knees, shielding his face from the heat. The shepherds around him perished, their screams swallowed up by hell. Only Eliab escaped, his robe singed, his mind in turmoil as he staggered toward his master's house. At the same moment, a caravan of Job's camels rested near an oasis, guarded by a loyal servant named Zabad. The air grew still, heavy with an eerie silence. Then, from the east, a horde of Chaldeans thundered in, their horses kicking up clouds of dust. Zabad drew his sword, but the invaders outnumbered him 10-1. They slaughtered the guards, captured the camels, and disappeared into the desert. Zabad, wounded but still alive, crawled across the sand, determined to warn Job. The final blow was the cruelest. In the house of Job's eldest son, the party was in full swing. The brothers clinked glasses, their faces alight with joy. Outside, the wind began to howl, a mournful wail that rose to a deafening roar. A servant girl named Miriam stood in the doorway and watched as a great gust swept across the desert, carrying debris in its wake. Before she could scream, the wind struck the house with the force of a titan's fist. The walls gave way. The roof caved in, and the laughter turned to screams. Miriam, thrown off by the blast, lay dazed in the rubble, the only survivor. Job was in his courtyard, washing his hands after the morning sacrifices, when Amos burst through the gate, his face streaked with blood and dust. "Master," he gasped, "the Sabaeans have attacked. They have taken the oxen and donkeys and killed the servants. Only I have escaped to tell you." Job's heart pounded, but before he could respond, Eliab staggered in, his voice hoarse. "Fire has fallen from heaven, Lord. The sheep and the shepherds are gone. They have been consumed. I alone am left alive." Job's knees buckled, his mind reeling, but the worst was yet to come. Zabad arrived next, collapsing at Job's feet. "The Chaldeans, Lord," he whispered. "They stole the camels and killed the guards. I alone am left alive." Job held his breath, his hands shaking as he gripped the edge of the altar. The courtyard seemed to spin, the world falling apart around him. Then Miriam appeared, her face pale and her eyes hollow. "Lord Job," she sobbed, "your sons were feasting in the house of your eldest son." A strong wind struck her, and she fell. "They are all dead. I alone am left to tell you." The words pierced Job like a dagger. His children, his joy, his legacy, were gone in an instant. The courtyard fell silent, the servants frozen in horror. Job's wife, Leah, came out of the house, her face pale as she heard Miriam's words. A groan escaped her throat, and she fell to the ground, clutching her clothes. Job stood motionless, the weight of his loss pressing down on his soul. Then, with a cry of anguish, he tore his clothes, the fabric ripping like his heart. He took a razor and shaved his head, the curls falling like offerings to the earth. The servants watched, breathless, as Job fell to his knees and prostrated himself before the altar. "Naked I came from my mother's womb," he whispered, his voice breaking, "and naked I shall return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." The words were not a cry of triumph, but a silent act of surrender, a thread of faith clinging to the brink of despair. Leah, her face streaming with tears, crawled to his side, her hands clutching his arm. "How can you bless him?" she whispered hoarsely. "Our children, Job. Our children." But Job, his eyes fixed on the altar, did not answer. His heart was a furnace of pain, but he would not curse his God. That night, as the stars shone coldly over Uz, Job sat in the courtyard, his robe torn from his shoulders. Leah wept beside him, her grief a mirror of his own. The servants, too shaken to speak, lit lamps that flickered in the darkness. The people of Uz, hearing of the calamity, gathered at the gates, their whispers a chorus of pity and fear. Yet Job remained silent, his faith a feeble flame in the storm of loss. Unseen by all, the accuser watched from the shadows, his plan only half complete. The greatest test was yet to come. The second test. Physical affliction. In the days following the cataclysm that stripped Job of his wealth and children, the land of Uz seemed to hold its breath. The once vibrant estate lay silent, its fields empty, its stables silent. Job's home, once a beacon of joy, was now a tomb of sorrow. He and his wife Leah moved through the hours like shadows, their eyes hollow, their voices muffled. The people of Uz kept their distance, whispering curses and divine wrath, afraid to approach the man who had fallen from grace. Yet Job clung to his faith, a flickering ember in the ashes of his world, unaware that the accuser was not yet finished with him. High above in the heavenly courts, the sons of God had gathered again before the throne of the Almighty. The air, was alive with divine power, the Creator's light casting no shadow. Satan had infiltrated the assembly, his presence a blot on the splendor. The voice of the Lord, firm as the mountains, addressed him. "Where have you come from?" he asked, his gaze piercing the accuser's facade. "From roaming in the earth," Satan replied defiantly, "and from walking up and down upon it." The Lord's gaze did not waver. "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one like him on earth, blameless and upright, one who fears me and turns away from evil. He stands firm in his integrity, though you incited me against him to destroy him without cause. Cursed be the day of my birth," he cried, his eyes fixed on the horizon. "Why did I not perish in my mother's womb? Why was I given light only to dwell in this darkness? My children are gone, my body is a ruin, and my soul finds no rest. I long for the grave, where kings and prisoners rest, where the weary find peace. Why does God give life to those who writhe in misery?" His words were not a rebellion against God, but a cry of despair, a plea for understanding from a man who had lost everything but his faith. Eliphaz, the elder, rose slowly, his weathered face etched with worry. As a Temanite mystic, he had seen visions of the night and believed he understood the ways of the divine. "Job," he began, his voice soft but firm, "you have strengthened many with your counsel. But now trouble has come, and you waver. Can a mortal be pure before God? I have seen that those who sow iniquity reap calamity. Surely some hidden sin has brought this upon you. Seek God, confess your guilt, and he will restore you. His wonders are unsearchable, his mercy boundless." Eliphaz's words, meant to comfort, fell like stones, each one piercing Job's wounded heart. Job's eyes flashed with pain. "Do you call this comfort?" he replied hoarsely. "Your words are wind, empty and cruel. Show me my sin, Eliphaz. I have walked in righteousness, but God has made me his target. The laughter of my children haunts me, their faces burn my soul. I cry out, but he is silent. Oh, that he would crush me and end this torment. That would be my only comfort." Job's hands trembled as he gripped the potsherd, scraping at a wound, his pain pouring out like blood. Bildad the Shuhite stirred, his brow furrowed. A keeper of tradition, he relied on the wisdom of the ancients, convinced that God's justice was immutable. "How long will you speak such foolishness, Job?" he said harshly. "Does the Almighty pervert what is right? If your children have sinned, he has given them over to their transgression. But if you are pure, seek him now, and he will make your dwelling place prosperous. Our fathers have said to us, 'God does not reject the blameless, nor uphold the wicked.' Trust in his words, for they are true." Bildad's voice carried the weight of generations, but to Job it was a cold doctrine, devoid of compassion. Job bowed, his head breathing heavily. "I know the wisdom of the ancients," he said, "but how can a man be righteous before God? If I were to contend with him, I could not answer one question in 1,000. He moves mountains, shakes the earth, walks upon the waves. Though I am blameless, my own mouth would condemn me. He destroys both the righteous and the wicked. Why then should I strive to be righteous? You speak of righteousness, Bildad, but I am crushed, and my hope is a spark in the storm." His words were a desperate struggle with faith, clinging to God even as he questioned him. Zophar the Naamathite could contain himself no longer. His eyes blazed with zeal, his voice sharp as a blade. "Should your empty words go unanswered, Job? You claim purity, but your suffering betrays you. Oh, that God would speak and show you the secrets of his wisdom. You deserve worse than this, but he spares you. Turn from your sin, repent, and peace will return. Your words mock the Almighty, and your pride blinds you." Zophar's accusation was a fire, meant to burn away what he saw as Job's defiance, but it only seared his friend's soul. Job's body shook, not with anger, but with exhaustion. "I have heard such things before," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You think yourselves wise, as if I had no understanding. But I am not beneath you. You mock me, the one who cried out to God and received his answer. If you sat in these ashes, would you speak so boldly? Not I. I would ease your pain with honest words, not wound you with assumptions. My friends have become my accusers, and I am left to weep before God, seeking the mercy you deny." His eyes lifted heavenward, seeking a glimpse of divine compassion. The debates dragged on, each friend reiterating his case, their voices rising and falling like waves against the shore. Eliphaz spoke of divine visions, Bildad of ancient truths, Zophar of righteous judgments. Job rebutted each, his innocence a shield, his pain a sword. He remembered his life before his trials, teaching his children to fear God, breaking bread with the fatherless, defending the oppressed. "If I have sinned," he cried, "let God weigh me in honest scales. If I have coveted or denied justice, or trusted in gold, let me be judged, but not I." His voice broke as he spoke of his children, their faces vivid in his mind. The warm laughter of his eldest son, the gentle smile of his youngest daughter. The memories were both a comfort and a torment, fueling his determination to clear his name. Leah, listening from the edge of the courtyard, wept silently. She had urged Job to curse God, but now she saw his faith as a beacon in the darkness. The people of Uz, gathered at a distance, murmured among themselves, some pitying Job, others judging him. The debates became circular, the friends' words hardening into accusations, Job's responses a mixture of despair and defiance. "I know that my Redeemer lives," he declared at last, his voice rising with sudden conviction. "Though my skin is wasted, yet in my flesh I shall see God. My heart fails me at the thought, yet I will trust in him even unto death." It was a cry of faith, unshaken by human wisdom, a testament to a hope beyond the grave. By sunset on the last day of the debate, the friends had fallen silent, their arguments exhausted. Job was exhausted too, his body racked with grief, his spirit drained. The courtyard fell silent, ash piling up around them. The friends offered no comfort, only judgment, and Job's questions remained unanswered. Yet in his heart, a spark of faith remained, waiting for the voice that would finally break the divine silence. Job's trial, a testament of faith, Elihu's intervention. As the debates between Job and his three friends faded into silence, the courtyard of ashes grew still, the air thick with unresolved tension. The sun was sinking below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold. But no answer had eased Job's torment. Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar sat with furrowed brows, their arguments exhausted, their wisdom inadequate. Job, his body, racked with wounds, stared into the gathering twilight, his heart a battleground of faith and despair. Unnoticed until then, a younger man stood at the edge of the circle, his eyes burning with fervor. Elihu, the son of Barachel the Buzite, could no longer hold his tongue. Elihu stepped forward, his young body tense with conviction. His voice, though unseasoned by age, carried the weight of one who felt the call of the Spirit. "I am young," he began, addressing the group, "and you are old, so I held back, afraid to speak. I thought, let age bring wisdom. But now I see that wisdom is not limited by years. It is the breath of the Almighty that gives understanding. Hear me, for I must speak." His words were a spark in the silence, drawing all eyes to him. Turning to Job, Elihu's tone softened, but his passion remained. "Job, you justify yourself above God, claiming innocence while questioning his ways. But God is greater than man. Why do you contend with him? He owes us no explanation, but he speaks in ways we often fail to perceive, through dreams that warn in the night, through suffering that humbles the proud. Your pain, Job, is not without purpose. God disciplines to save, to turn the soul from the pit. Far be it from him to do evil. He repays each according to his deeds. Elihu's hands gestured toward the heavens, as if calling upon the stars to testify. He then addressed his friends, his voice harsher. You have failed to answer Job rightly, offering empty words instead of truth. You accuse without proof, comfort without compassion. God's justice is not as simple as you claim. His ways are vast, his purposes beyond our grasp. As Elihu spoke, a breeze stirred the ashes, bringing a faint rumbling in the distance. The sky grew dark, not with night, but with a gathering storm, its clouds swirling like a divine herald. Behold the wonders of God, Elihu exclaimed, his eyes shining. Do you know how he commands the lightning, or balances the heavens? His voice thunders. His power is unfathomable. Men tremble before him, for his majesty is glorious. The storm was approaching, its winds whistling across Uz, tugging at garments and scattering dust. Elihu's words seemed to blend with the storm, his voice a prelude to a greater presence. Job and his friends looked up at the sky, their hearts filled with silent wonder. Elihu stepped back, his role complete, having prepared the way for the one whose voice would soon resound. The courtyard shook, not with fear but with anticipation, for the Almighty was about to speak. God's answer. The whirlwind. The storm Elihu had foretold was no ordinary storm. It descended upon Uz with earth-shattering fury, a whirlwind charged with the majesty of the Creator. Dark clouds roiled, laced with lightning that cracked like a whip across the sky. The wind roared, a chorus of divine power, uprooting bushes and shaking the stones of Job's ruined estate. Job, sitting in the ashes, felt the ground shake beneath him, his wounds forgotten in the face of this imposing force. Eliphaz, Bildad, Zophar, and Elihu fell to their knees, their faces pale and their hearts pounding. Leah, watching from the edge of the courtyard, clutched her shawl, her eyes wide with fear and wonder. From the heart of the whirlwind a voice thundered, vast and unyielding, yet charged with a tenderness that penetrated the soul. Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? He asked, addressing Job directly. Gird up your loins like a man, for I will question you, and you shall answer me. The voice was not cruel, but imperative, a call to humility. Before the infinite, Job held his breath, his body trembling as he realized that the Almighty himself had come to speak. The Lord led Job on a journey through the wonders of creation, his questions a tapestry of divine art. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me, if you have understanding. Who determined its measures, or stretched out the measuring line across it? When the morning stars sang together, and the sons of God shouted for joy, were you there? The whirlwind pulsed with images. Mountains, heaving, seas bursting, stars igniting in the void. Job's mind reeled, his heart humbled before the vastness of God's work. Have you shut up the sea with doors, saying, Thus far may you come, and no further? The voice continued. Have you commanded the dawn to break, or have you entered the storehouses of snow and hail? Can you bind the chains of the Pleiades, or loose the cords of Orion? Lightning flashed, illuminating the courtyard as the Lord's words painted the cosmos. Constellations swirling, storms roaring, seasons changing. Job's friends covered their faces in dismay as Job listened, his soul absorbing the revelation. Do you give strength to the horse, or clothe his neck with flowing mane? Does the hawk soar with your wisdom, or does the eagle build her nest on high? The whirlwind seemed to bring visions of galloping steeds, their hooves thundering, and birds swooping across the sky, each a testament to divine design. Behold, Behemoth, which I have made as I have made you. His strength is in his loins, his bones like bars of iron. Can you pierce his nose with a snare? The image of a mighty creature, untamable and majestic, filled Job's mind, his power a shadow of God himself. And consider Leviathan, who laughs at the spear. Can you draw him out with a hook or catch his tongue with a rope? No one is so fierce as to trouble him. Who then can stand before me? The whirlwind roared louder, conjuring up a sea monster thrashing in the depths, its scales gleaming like armor. Job's heart pounded, not in fear but in wonder. He saw now the folly of his questions, the smallness of his perspective in the face of the greatness of the Creator. The voice softened, but its weight remained. Shall the critic contend with the Almighty? Let him who argues with God answer. Job, his face pressed against the ashes, whispered, I am insignificant. What can I say? I put my hand over my mouth. I have spoken once, but I will not do so again. His regret was not for sin but for ignorance, for daring to judge God's ways from a mortal perspective. The whirlwind calmed a little. The fury of the storm stilled, as if recognizing Job's humility. The Lord had not explained Job's suffering, but had revealed himself, and that was enough. Job's trial, a testament of faith, continued, restoration and legacy. The whirlwind dissipated, leaving Uz in a stillness that seemed sacred. Job, humbled by the voice of the Almighty, lay in the ashes, his heart transformed. The Lord turned to Eliphaz, his tone firm but merciful. My anger burns against you and your friends, because you have not spoken the truth about me, as my servant Job has. Take 7 bulls and rams and offer them as a sacrifice, and let Job pray for you, for I will accept your intercession. The chastened Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar obeyed, preparing the offerings with trembling hands. Job, despite his pain, stood and prayed for his friends, his voice firm and gracious, forgiving their misguided words. In that act of obedience, the tide of Job's life changed. The Lord restored his fortunes, doubling all that he had lost. From distant lands, caravans arrived, carrying 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, and 1,000 donkeys. The fields flourished again, and the servants rebuilt the estate, their songs echoing throughout Uz. God gave Job 7 new sons and 3 daughters, whose beauty was unmatched in the land. He named them Jemimah, Keziah, and Cheram-Hapuk, and in a rare act gave them an inheritance alongside their brothers, a testament to their renewed faith. Leah, her heart healed, smiled once more. Her love for Job deepened by their shared trials. Job lived 140 years, seeing 4 generations, his home a haven of joy. He died old and full of days, his legacy etched in the heart of Uz, a man whose faith withstood the fire. Job's story is a beacon in the darkness of human suffering. It teaches that God's ways, though mysterious, are rooted in sovereignty and goodness. Job's faith, tested by loss and pain, reveals that true devotion depends not on reward, but on trust in the Creator. His honest, sinless laments were a dialogue with God, truer than the easy answers of his friends. The hurricane showed that divine presence, not explanation, is the ultimate comfort. Job's restoration offers hope. Even in life's deepest trials, redemption awaits those who cling to God. His story invites us to struggle with faith, to seek the Almighty in our pain, and to trust that our Redeemer lives. May we, like Job, find strength in the fire and peace in His presence.